And so when you look at Fireground management styles, there's really two: the incident command driven Fireground and the SOG-driven Fireground, right? Or incident commander and plan driven, right? So in an incident commander driven Fireground, how do people that are arriving on the scene figure out what their job is and what they're supposed to do? They're told to do that, right? And following the rules of engagement, they can't do anything until that person tells them. So if we're in an IC-driven system, by definition, who has to be the first person there? Or what does the first person there have to be? Command. Now you ask yourself, who is that person? Right? Is that person a company officer? Is that person the fire chief who lives in town and has a take-home vehicle? Right? Or is that person, a driver that's acting on their first day as the officer? Is this person a brand new firefighter that showed up on the ambulance? Right? I'm sure in your department, if you think about who could be the first one there, the answer could be a very seasoned person who knows absolutely what they're doing, and could also be a brand new person who has never done this on a working fire before. Right? So that becomes a point of concern there, because what you're asking here is that in an IC-driven system, you're asking that an incident commander not only to decide what they are going to do in terms of what their company is going to do. What else are you asking them? To decide what everybody else is going to do, right? And so when I think about my department, I have guys that are 23, 24 years old that could be turned over to be an acting officer and could be riding the right front seat of the first due engine. And so on any given day, I could have that first arriving person could be, a 30-year fire captain who's been to 1 million fires and knows exactly what they're doing. I could also have a brand new guy who's never been the first arriving person on a reported structure fire, let alone a working one. And my system has to work for both of those. You get what I'm saying? Because that arrangement could change every day of the year. I can't change the whole fire department every day of the year depending on staffing levels and who's arriving. You know what I mean? So something we got to consider with the IC-driven person is, who is that person? What is their experience? Have they been trained to be in command? Right? I just talked a bunch about fire departments that don't do enough to train their incident commanders, their battalion chiefs or their fire chiefs or whatever. They don't do enough to train their chief officers how to be in command. Do we really think they're training their firefighters and lieutenants and captains how to be in command? Right? So if you're going to ask the first due officer to be in command, you have to make sure that they're trained to do it. The next thing you got to do is ask if they have time to do it. Right? And when I'm hearing predominantly 2 to 3 person staffing levels, and we're thinking about, remember, everything we're talking about, we look at through the framework of the offensive fire with people trapped in a mayday. And you're on a 2 or 3 person company, and you just pulled up at a working fire with people trapped. Do you have time to be in command? You got to ask yourself, where are you going to be as this initial incident commander? And the 3 answers that you find for that is, I'm going to either stay outside, or I'm going to go inside, or I'm going to go inside and try and do both. I'm either going to go be the company officer, I'm going to stay and be command, or I'm going to try and go be the company officer and command. And that kind of thing also, separating yourself as a company officer while your crew goes in, that's like statistically associated with like 67% of Maydays. So that's a big consideration there, right? Now, if you go down from 4 person and you go to 3 or 2 person, does this get better or worse? Think about it, right? Anybody that's ever ridden on a 3-person engine company knows that what's the officer's job? You're the backup firefighter with a captain badge. You know what I'm saying? So you're certain, what this gets to is, when I say, do you have the time to be in command, most officers are also very much needed to participate in doing whatever their company is doing. Whether it's stretching the line or forcing the door or doing the search, that the officer is an integral manpower component of that, right? And so now you're asking this person, to, like he was saying, to do all these things of lead my crew, probably physically participate in what my crew is doing, tell other crews what to do, you know, all in this time-compressed offensive trapped environment. And that's a very, very big ask. And I don't find a lot of officers that say, yes, I like that. I find it works well and it's productive and I hope they let me keep doing that. 9 out of 10 officers I talk to are like, this is bullshit, it doesn't work, we need to do something different. So other issues that we have, you know, with the IC-driven system is nobody that's coming there knows what to do. So you have to tell them what to do, right? And so if we look at, we said, hey, to get initially effective on this incident, we need to do these 6 things. Well, that means I need to tell people to do these 6 things, right? So every time I try and tell somebody something, it's something like this. You know, command engine 1, need you to take a line and put the fire out. Copy that, right? Some version of that. It's like 4 radio transmissions to exchange this order, right? So if I have 6 assignments that I need to give, those 6 principal assignments that we just talked about, and it takes 4 radio transmissions to make each assignment, how many radio transmissions are we going to have? 24 radio transmissions in the first few minutes of this fire, and that doesn't include people arriving on scene, doing 360s, calling for water, or all the other things. It also doesn't include the, can you repeat that, or somebody didn't answer the radio and I have to say it again, and that kind of stuff. So if you've ever wondered how that radio traffic can really quickly get out of hand, well, you know, if you have to tell everybody what to do every single time, that's going to add quite a bit of radio traffic to your first few minutes, right? So the other thing is the delay in action, right? So if the companies are arriving on scene, how does this go for you guys? Are they automatically like level 1 staging, or are they calling on the radio for orders? They're all automatically staging, right? What does level 1 staging mean?
What does it technically mean?
I know what it technically means. What does it mean from an action standpoint? Yeah, it means you're not doing shit, is what it means, right? We have neighbors, and I trust me, I know the color of the system. I'm very familiar. I've been in departments that use it before. I know all about it, right? But we have departments nearby that use that have had companies level 1 staging on obvious working fires with people trapped. You know, one of the most common things I hear dealing with departments that operate in that manner is that they forget companies. I hear that all the time from chief officers that are running that, especially when you have a highly stressful fire, right, where there's a lot of things going on. Think about how easy it is. How easy it would be to miss the radio transmission of so-and-so is staged, you know, and 5-6 minutes later, you haven't used a company that's been sitting there the whole time. You know, meanwhile, you had things that needed to be done, right? So, you know, there's a big delay in action there, because the other thing is that the assignments have to be sequential. And I know some of you guys would not be in this situation because you're waiting 30 minutes for the mutual aid partner, but some departments are in the situation where you have multiple units arriving on scene within moments of each other, right? And so when we get into the level 1 staging situation there, now what you have is engine 1's level 1, ladder 1's level 1, engine 2's level 2, right? And you get these units that are stacking up, right? And so the incident commander now has to run through each one of those units to give them what to do. So if you're the 3rd company that got there, you've got to sit there just through 2 other companies' worth of assignments before you can get to work. Does that make sense? So even if the incident commander already has a job for you and knows what the job that needs to be done is, there's just a delay, and I got to tell him before I tell him, and this guy over here is waiting the whole time just for me to get down the line. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's just a big delay in action, right? You know, other stuff I can get real deep in. Is this an issue? Is this an issue for you guys, this IC-driven stuff? And the other thing I hate about it is the what do I park, what do I bring, and the Fireground surprise. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little OCD about my equipment, right? I check the lines on the engine. I want the nozzles set a certain way. I tune my Halligan bar my way. I check my saw. I set the switches how I want them. I have the RIT pack set up the right way. You get what I'm saying? Like, does anybody else go in the morning and just set everything up on the rig how they like it, right? And that helps you when you have to use it, right? It makes you more effective when you use it on a Fireground. Well, so then what happens is now you go to a fire, right? And you get dispatched this fire, and let's just say you're not first due, okay? So you're going to be a later arriving company on this fire, and you're going to this fire, and you get there, and you level 1 stage, right? And then they assign you to come up and do this, or come up or do that. Are you moving the fire truck to do that? So now what do you have to do? Now you have to kind of decide, like, well, am I parking my ladder truck in the right spot or right not? Should I bring the saw up? Should I bring the RIT pack up? Do I need the irons? Like, especially if there are some departments that'll have you park and then have the personnel walk up, and then they give you the assignment. That's really screwing these guys, because like you have to make this decision when you leave the fire truck about what to bring. And what does Murphy's Law say? Whatever you didn't bring is what you needed, and whatever you brought you don't need. And now you're stuck using somebody else's saw or somebody else's whatever, and I guess you can make that work, but I don't think that's as most efficient. The other thing is the whole Fireground surprise kind of thing, right? Again, you're going out the door, you're going to a reported structure fire, you get a glimpse of the column, and then somebody sneaks in the back of the fire truck and puts like a blindfold on you. You're like, no peeking, right? And you're going to the fire, and you're hearing all these radio transmissions, and you're like, man, I wonder what I'm going to get to do when I get there. Maybe they'll have me stretch a line. That'd be cool. Sounds like I get a good fire. Probably I'll grab a cross lay, 1 3/4, take it to the Charlie side. Well, shit. What if they say do a search? Okay, sounds like fire's on the first floor. Sounds like they got a search there. I need to get to the second floor. Maybe I should VES, 2-story, 24-foot ladder. Crap, what if they say vent? All right, well, it's not a top floor fire. It's below the top floor, so it's probably not going to be the roof. You get what I'm saying? You're going down the road, and you're just thinking a mile a minute about, like, what about this? What about that? And you're 5% prepared for 100 things, right? And then all of a sudden you pull up in level 1 staging, or you pull up and you're on the front lawn of the house, you still got the blindfold on, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, you're the RIT team. And this is the first notice you've gotten of this, right? It's now revealed to you what you're going to do on this fire. And so when is the moment that you're able to start thinking about and preparing for that? Now, right? Now is the first moment where you've really been able to start thinking about and preparing for this. We'll talk about the SOG-driven system, which is what we mostly run. But our guys, they go out the door. They know on geography, hey guys, we're gonna be second in ladder company here. All right, that means we got to go to we're going to the fire floor, splitting for ventilation, and now they're thinking about that the whole way, listening to the size up and the reports, and everything they hear about the building and what other people are doing, they're plugging into the framework of what their job is going to be when they get there. Now, who ends up at the scene more prepared? The guy that's been thinking about what his job is going to be for 5 minutes during the entire response, or the guy that you just told right now on the front lawn to do something? You know what I'm saying? So just from a preparation or perspective kind of thing there.